Okay, so just a quick overview of some of my kit, as there's been a few requests. So I'm preparing to go to Spain. I'm teaching students from across Europe about sound design next week, so I had some of the gear out on the table and I figured I could sort of talk through it and how I use it. But yeah, there we go. So yeah, tons of headphones and recorders and stuff for playing with sound. But pedal wise, Memory Man, that's kind of cool. So all of these I use through synthesizers. I've never used them through guitars, and so I've always been looking for something that's kind of dynamically can work with synthesis. So some pedals come and go, but that sort of stereo delay, the reverb kind of reversey delay thing is very, very cool. And yeah, it's definitely got a use on many different occasions. Loud Metal Muff, predominantly used on the 303, just gives it that sort of screaming distortion, really heavy, but it does add a lot of sort of noise to the signal. But it's a very cool pedal. Holy Stain is a little bit hit and miss, but it does have some cool features. The reverbs are okay, but the pitch shift is cool and the tremolo's pretty good, and it can add a little bit of dirt to the signal, so it has its place, if not the most important. This thing is just a bit weird, sort of frequency shifting, do its own thing. It's kind of cool, but it's a little uncontrollable. It sort of does its own thing really, and I'd rather kind of control frequency shifting through sort of a little more through sort of VST territory normally, as a rule, just to have a little more control over what's going on. But kind of in a live signal chain, it can add some cool stuff. It needs a lot of drive to get it going as well, so you need a good hard signal going into it. But yeah, it's kind of cool. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it long term, but it is different, that's for sure. Yeah, the reverb, I mean, there's a lot of people use it. It's just the shimmery thing's very nice, but just the standard reverbs with just a bit on. I like it through the sort of analog synths. The Mother 32 that I've got sounds particularly nice through it, and I've seen a lot of other YouTubes where that's the case for many people. So yeah, good pedal, worth the money, and I didn't pay a lot for it at this point. This thing's really cool. This sounds great on the 303, really gives it some bottom end, really dirty heavy bottom end. It also works really well on the sort of analog Mother 32, just to warm up that sound and get a richness from, even though it's a particularly rich synth to start with, it just adds a little extra. This little thing is just tremolo. It's pretty rubbish really. But I mean, it's nice when that's being used for something else. That can just be a new path in the chain to just add something to it, a little bit of tweak. Distortion pedal, not nearly as heavy as that, but it's very interesting. Just borrowing it off a friend at the minute. Just add a little bit of warmth and a bit of fuzz. Certainly to the 303, which I tried it on. In comparison to that, which just adds huge amounts of stuff. This is a little more tame, but it is good actually, and it works well with synths. These things, they're called Marty Electro. It's just they're just cool. They're noisy little beasts. So the signal path does get a bit sort of hissy when using them, but just sound design, just playing, I kind of like them independently, just to go off on my own wandering experiences in sound and just stick like a Tascam on it and just see what comes out and then sample that later. So they're very cool. There's nothing quite like them as far as I'm aware. I think the effects one has more use for my studio, but I think the two make a good pairing, and just for exploring sound synthesis I think it's really cool. Throwing this one in my bag just because it's small and it can go in my suitcase. So yeah, I think this is just a weird, cool little sound synth, really. Well worth the money, they're cheap. Very difficult to control, but again, it's one of those that just put it in, record it, mess with it, push wires into wires and hook it up, and then try and keep a kind of eye on what you can do for sampling later. So yeah, cool bit of kit. So this is yeah, what I will be working with in Spain, along with a few laptops next week.